Hey guys, today I'm going to be reading for you the News to You article for the week. This week it is about the Youth Poet Laureate. Poet Laureate. It's hard for me to say for some reason. I don't have a good video to show you about this, so we will just be reading it. To start, we'll start off on page 1 here. The U.S. will have a new special Poet Laureate soon. The poet is a person who writes poems. Poems may share ideas, feelings, and stories. So poems are just a type of writing that's more expressive, and there are lots of ways that you can write poems. So let's go over to page 2. A special poet is named the National Youth Poet Laureate. The Youth Poet Laureate is a poet and leader. The U.S. has a new Youth Poet Laureate each year. The first Youth Poet Laureate was in 2017. The first Youth Poet Laureate was Amanda Gorman. And I bet you guys would recognize her if I show you a picture of her. So she was the poet that spoke at the inauguration that happened this year for Joe Biden. And so she's a pretty amazing young lady. We actually saw in the news, if you're keeping up with CNN 10, the organization that kind of helped her get her start with writing, and that was really cool to see as well. So she is currently the Youth Poet Laureate, and now somebody else is going to take over. And she was the first one in 2017. Let's go to page 3. Young poets compete to be the Youth Poet Laureate. The young poets are 13 years old to 19 years old. The poets compete in contests. The poets write poems. The poets read their poems aloud at the contests. So this really is a competition for teenagers. So anybody who has the word teen in their name, so 13 to 19 years old. And it's kind of a contest. So they have to write poems and then submit them. And then they read their poems out loud. Let's go to page 4. The poets must win city contests first. Then the poets can compete in bigger contests. The biggest contest is the national contest. The national contest is in the U.S. each year. Poets from across the U.S. compete in the contest. So first they have to start off in a city competition, I'm sure. Then that moves on to a state competition, and then eventually they end up in the national competition, which encompasses the whole United States. And the winner of that is then the Poet Laureate. Let's go to page 5. 4 poets are in the 2021 national contest now. The 4 poets are Money Harris from Michigan. Woohoo! Go Michigan. Serena Yang from New York, Alora Young from Tennessee, and Alexandra Young from California. The 4 poets will read their poems at the ceremony. Let's go on to page 6 here. The ceremony will be on May 20th, so not till the end of this month. If you look at the calendar just in the bottom of my screen, that is a Thursday. So it's like a week from this Thursday. People can watch the ceremony online, just like with a lot of events happening in our world today. Judges will listen to the poets, and judges will announce the winner at the ceremony. The winner will be the 2021 National Youth Poet Laureate. So it's down to 4 people. They're going to read their poems out loud, and you can watch that online, and then the judges will decide who the winner is. Let's go to page 7. The winner is the Youth Poet Laureate for 1 year. Being the Youth Poet Laureate is an honor. The Youth Poet Laureate may travel to many places. The Youth Poet Laureate may write poems for ceremonies. The Youth Poet Laureate may read poems aloud at events. So that's pretty cool. So they get to travel around and read their poems to different people and places. Go to page 8. The U.S. will have a new special poet soon. This poet is named the National Youth Poet Laureate. The U.S. has a new Youth Poet Laureate each year. The 2021 Youth Poet Laureate will be announced on May 20th. Would you like to be a poet? And I'm sure you guys have probably written some poetry at some point in your educational career. Let's move on to page 9. So this is about Amanda Gorman. Amanda Gorman was the first National Youth Poet Laureate. She's from Los Angeles, California. Amanda wrote a poem for President Joe Biden's inauguration. She read her poem at the inauguration ceremony, and the title of her poem is The Hill We Climb. You can actually find that poem online. You can see videos of her reading it. It's kind of long, or else I would have showed you a video. And they also are selling kind of like a printed book version of it. I just saw it at Barnes & Noble over the weekend. So that's kind of cool. Here's page 10. This is our where page. So we're talking about a place. In this case, we're talking about US, which is the country we live in. So the US will have a new National Youth Poet Laureate soon. The U.S. is a country in North America. The U.S. is between the Pacific Ocean and Atlantic Ocean. Canada is north of the U.S. Mexico is south of the U.S. Let's move on to the next page, which should be our joke page here. Knock, knock. Who's there? May. May who? Maybe she will win the contest, because the Youth Poet Laureate contest is in May, so maybe she will win the contest. Let's go to page 13. This should be our other joke page. I have a joke. Tell me, where does a poem come from? I don't know, where? A poetry. So instead of poetry, which is the type of writing, it's a poet tree. So here is the game page where we will circle words that we heard from this article. So let's start right here with poem. Did we read about that today? Let's circle poem. So a poem is what poets write. It's the type of writing. And like I said, it has many different forms, but it's kind of a more artistic writing. What about lawnmower? Did we read about that? No, we didn't read about a lawnmower. What about contest? We did read about a contest. This whole thing is about the contest to decide the Youth Poet Laureate for the year. What about the word share? So the poets have to share their poetry by reading it out loud at these competitions. What about the word ceremony? So these poets often read at ceremonies after they have won. What about the word compete? So the poets are competing against each other to win Youth Poet Laureate. And we're down to the final four, one being from Michigan. What about the word cricket? Did we read about that today? No, we didn't read about cricket. What about poet? Yep, so poets are the people who write poems. What about the word helmet? No, we didn't read about that. What about the word young? Yep, so this is talking about teenagers, so they're kind of young. I know probably not by your guys' standards, but they are pretty young. What about the word write? Like you're writing something. So poems are a type of writing. What about feelings? So a lot of times, like I said, poetry is more artistic and more emotional. A lot of times poetry does involve feelings. What about the word read? So they have to read their poems at the competitions. What about the word win? So it is a competition, so there will be one winner that's named the Youth Poet Laureate. What about the word ideas? So a lot of the poems include their ideas and how they feel about certain topics. All right, last one. It says island. Nice job. We didn't talk about island. Let's move on to our review page. So question number 1, what is the paper about? Was it about Video Game Hall of Fame, National Youth Poet Laureate, or Tulip Time Festival? Circle the answer you think is correct. It's National Youth Poet Laureate, middle option. Question 2, who, which is a person, who is a person who writes poems? Magician, painter, or poet? Circle the answer you think is correct. A poet, last option. Number 3, where is the national contest each year? Is it in the US, Kenya, or Peru? Circle the answer you think is correct. The US. Option 1. Number 4, what do poets compete to be the Youth Poet Laureate? Races, sports, or contest? Circle the answer you think is correct. Contest, last option. Number 5, what must the Youth Poet Laureate be? Cool, young, or funny? Circle the answer you think is correct. They must be young, a teenager. Number 6, what do poets do when they compete? Read, cook, or dance? Circle the answer you think is correct. They have to read their poems. Nice job. We're going to move on to our last page, which is the puzzle page. Remember, words that go across or horizontally are how we normally write, and then we have words that go down, which is vertical. It's kind of a little different than we normally write. So we're going to start with our crosswords, number 2. So number 2 in our puzzle is right here. That word says poet. Poet is spelled P-O-E-T. E. Let's cross it off. So a poet is a person who writes poems, and that's what these particular people are competing for. Let's look at number 5 across. 5 in our puzzle is right here. That word says ceremony. Ceremony is spelled C E R E M O N Y. Ceremony. Let's cross it off. Number 7. We're still going across. 7 is right here in our puzzle, and that says read. Read is spelled R E A D. Read. Let's cross it off. Number 8 says contest. 8 is right here. We're still going across. Contest is spelled C O N T E S T. Contest. Let's cross it off. All right, now we're going to move to our down words. Number 1. Sorry. Number 1 is right here. We're writing them vertically. It says compete. Compete is spelled C O P E. Oop. Sorry, y'all, I messed up. Oop. Erase that. M P E we've already written. T E. That spells compete. Now we're going to 2 down. 2 is right here. And that word says poems. Poems is spelled P, which we've already written. O E, which we've already written. M S. Let's cross it off. Number 3 down says win. 3 is right here, and win is spelled W I N we've already written. Let's cross it off. Now we're looking at number 4 down. 4 is right here, and 4 is spelled W R I T E. That spells right, because they are writers. Lastly, number 6 down says young. 6 is right here. Young is spelled Y O U N G. Young. Let's cross it off. So I hope you learned a little bit about the Youth Poet Laureate, and you may be interested in watching the competition, which is coming up on May 20th. If you'd like more information on that, you can contact me. But I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you next time, guys. Have a great day.